The Louisville men's basketball team opened up the Pat Kelsey era with a blowout victory over Morehead State.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the university, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, all you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Louisville men's basketball team opened up the Pat Kelsey era with a dominant 93-45 victory over Morehead State. It was an all-around really solid team effort, a breath of fresh air for the Louisville men's basketball program. The Louisville women's basketball team opened up the season in France against number 5 UCLA, went back and forth with the Bruins, unfortunately lost that battle, but nonetheless, there are a ton of positives to take away from this season opener for Jeff Walls' squad. And then to conclude the show, we'll talk about the great season that the volleyball team is having. Top 5 in the country right now. Stop me if you've heard this before. But Danny Busman-Kelly's team is, once again, a national championship contender. A lot of good stuff to talk about on the show today. We begin in the men's basketball realm. Louisville, opened up the Pat Kelsey era against Morehead State at home on Monday evening. A lot of anticipation about this matchup. How would Louisville look following two pretty lopsided exhibition games, but this is without a doubt the best team that they've played so far. They entered the night anywhere from about, I think they opened up as a 16.5 point favorite and closed at like 21.5. When I saw the line before the game, I was like, man, I think that this is really low. And I understand that the narrative was that, well, you really just have to wait to see how good Louisville is. They've struggled mightily, to say the least, the past 2 years. It's a new coach that hasn't coached the Power 5, and it's 13 new players. Well, if you were worried about the spread, you weren't worried for long. Louisville opened up this game pretty much right out of the gate. They scored 41 first-half points. They only allowed 45 total from Morehead State, and Louisville ended up winning by 48 points. It was the first time since 2018 that the Louisville men's basketball team had defeated an opponent by over 45 points. It was an all-around really, really solid game. Not too awful much to take away from this performance. I mean, it's the first game against a team that you were supposed to beat by all accounts, but it was a breath of fresh air. The things you saw on Monday night, it really just highlighted how sad things were the previous 2 seasons. Like when you are in, I'm not underselling any of this, but when you see your bench, the coaches, coaching avidly from the sideline with a lot of energy, and you see the bench have a lot of energy, and the team on the court is just playing with a ton of fire and passion. They're diving after loose balls. They are crashing the boards. They're passing and moving without the ball. Not a lot of hero one-on-one play. Overall, it was such a relief to see. And a lot of these, you could say, are sort of prerequisites to the game of basketball. I mean, passing the ball is sort of a prerequisite, right? You should be excited for your teammates on the bench. Your coaches should be up avidly instructing the players on the court and being involved in the game. But for the past 2 years, that hadn't been the case. But we got back on track on Monday night. I mean, the brand of basketball was really fun to watch. I mean, Louisville scored over 90 points. They allowed less than 50. it's really hard to come away from this performance and think that you could have wanted any more. Like, it's as good of a first performance against a team you're supposed to beat by double digits as it comes, right? Looking at sort of the player performances from last night, it starts with Kasean Pryor. Pryor came off the bench but played 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes, he had a game high 18 points to go along with 12 rebounds. He was fantastic on the court, had 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. The offensive and defensive metrics with him on the court were considerably better than those metrics with him not on the court. And I think that that's going to be something to monitor. Whether or not he's starting games or not, he's going to be playing a majority of them. He's a player that is going to be in the closing 5 when the game is on the line down the stretch. He was fantastic. 50% from the field. The three-point shot wasn't really falling, and he still had 18 points. So the three-point percentage wasn't the greatest for Louisville. They shot 31%, 11 of 36. Started out really, really bad from three-point land, but they were able to get the ball inside. They were able to get to the free throw line. They do have to be better at making their free throws. They only made 64% of their free throws. Pryor was 7 of 9, and Hepburn was 5 for 5. Hadley 4 for 4, but James Scott missed both of his. Traore missed one of his. Edwards missed both. Kenai Ruths missed both, and Aiden McCool made 1 of 2. So ultimately, across the board, it was a good performance. I saw the tenacity on the court from the very beginning to the very end. Even when Louisville was up by over 40 points, the tenacious level of play was still present, and that's something that I was encouraged of, was that Louisville didn't get a lead and then sort of hit cruise control, which is sort of your first instinct when you do build that large of a lead. So it was nice to see that. James Scott started the game, had 12 points, 5 rebounds, had 5 dunks in the game. I think that that's second most in program history behind, is it Wes Unseld? Or no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. It was Purvis Ellison. I forget the year, but I saw Kelly Dickey tweet that on Twitter. But James Scott was involved in some really nice, sets to begin the game. Had the dunk at the very beginning, had the dunk to start the second half. Where there was a ton of movement toward the free throw line, and he came off of the secondary screen and was able to get to the rim unopposed. Javon Hadley had 15 points. I liked his face-up game toward the basket. He was perfect from the free throw line and actually shot 3 of 5 from three-point land. Overall, I mean, for a team that you were wondering, well, how good are they going to be if those three-pointers are not falling? Yeah, they did make 11 of them, but they shot 36 overall, so making 31% isn't good, but it's not great. So you saw a lot of movement without the basketball. You also saw some pressing in this game. You saw Chucky Hepburn press his man full court. Some situations where there was a timeout, coming out of the timeout in the full court, they were up on playing defense, full court press. So it was just overall, I keep coming back to this term breath of fresh air because really that's what it was. They beat a team that they were supposed to beat. And again, it just reiterates, and I don't like to keep going back to this, but when you talk about the significance of this outcome, the past couple of years, this is a game that Louisville very well probably loses. And like I said, I don't want to seem like a broken record here, but again, it just reiterates how sad and down bad this program was. And now you beat a team that you're supposed to, you blow them out. It's a rather stressless game, and you're able to sit back and just enjoy college basketball, enjoy Cardinal basketball again. I mean, the stands, was it announced that there was like 12,000 people, although I think that there was probably more than that, after the game started. Still, it was considerably louder than the Yum has been in the past 3-4 seasons. So excited to see what the crowd looks like for Tennessee. We're going to preview that matchup coming up in the next couple of episodes. But also kind of looking throughout, you saw Rain Smith have 12 points. He made 4 of 9 threes. That's where his points came from on three-pointers. I thought Kanai Roots gave you some big-time minutes. Traore, not a great offensive night, 3 points, but he had 9 rebounds and 3 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. So going back to what we said before the season, even if he's not scoring the basketball at a high level, he affects the game in so many different ways that it's hard to keep him off of the court. Chucky Hepburn only shot 3 shots. He had 4 assists, 8 points. Thought he was aggressive, but didn't really force the issue. Terrence Edwards he had 12 points. And then, like I mentioned, James Scott with 12. Noah Waterman, not the greatest night for him. He was 0 of 4 from three-point land, but he had a couple of solid plays. And then you saw Corin Johnson only take 5 shots, and he had 4 points. So, again, really hard to take some stuff away from this game. But one thing is for certain is that it was everything you could have asked for from a season opener for a team full of 13 new guys and a head coach that hasn't coached at the Power 5 level. But big matchup coming up on Saturday, 12 o'clock at the KFC Yum Center. The Cardinals will host the 12th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers. Going to be a tough matchup for Pat Kelsey's squad. We'll break it down coming up later in the week. Now we turn our attention to the women's basketball side of things. Unfortunately, a loss in the season opener, but there's reason to believe that this is going to be a very good team at some point this season. We'll discuss when we come back. Cardinal fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we pulled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going. You receive some exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. And the best part is that it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Isaac Brown. I just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Isaac Brown the love and keep him connected to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sees your team set up for success. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at ROY_return on you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. And while I have you here, Cardinal fans, I think it's best to tell you that, or reiterate to you, that Louisville did cover the spread last night against Morehead State. I took the spread at 18.5. And after the first half, I was feeling really, really good. Be sure to check out all of the college basketball spreads on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And the huge thing now is that new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Cardinal fans, I don't know how I feel about a game starting at 2 or 2:30 on a weekday. But I was just so ready for college basketball to be back that I would welcome it if it started at 8 a.m. But this situation makes it all justified. Louisville got the opportunity to go overseas and play a top 5 team in France. And unfortunately, they came up just a little bit short. It was a back-and-forth game against the number 5 UCLA Bruins. Like I said, they went back and forth. Louisville had the first quarter lead. UCLA ended up coming back to take the halftime lead on a buzzer beater at the end of the second quarter. Louisville kept it close, but the Bruins went on a little bit of a run in the second half, the fourth quarter specifically, and it just pushed the lead out too far for Louisville to end up coming back. And I know that you never want to take moral victories out of a loss, and we're not really going to do that, but there's a difference between claiming moral victories and looking at some of the positives, because the reality of the situation is it's always tough for a team to come right out of the gate and play well to start the season. I mean, we see teams get upset all the time across sports. And this can even be a veteran team, let alone a team that it feels like the majority of the players are freshmen. And Louisville is very young. They have a ton of freshmen that played against UCLA. And this will be a team that will get better and better as the season goes on. It's going to take some time. There are going to be some bumps in the road. They're going to hit some adversity. But I believe that when Jeff Walls' squad gets to around ACC play, at some point things are going to click and this team is going to be really good. Now, it's not just a young team. There is some veteran presence with Olivia Cochran, Nyla Harris, and Sydney Curry. Sydney Curry did miss this game against UCLA, but we saw the same Louisville tenacity on defense that we usually do from a vintage Jeff Walls squad. Sorry, I'm sitting here planning a football episode for tomorrow. I'm thinking about the football side of things. My apologies, but Jeff Walls' squad is going to be really good here in a couple months, maybe even before that. So you look at the statistics, and offensively it was sort of a rough game. Louisville shot 32% from the field, 21% from the three-point line, and 63% from the free throw line. So overall, those are some tough numbers, but I thought that the Cardinals defended really well, and they went up against Lauren Betts. And Lauren Betts, if you don't know who that is, she's a former number 1 overall recruit, 6'7" center. So as much as I might be worried a little bit about how Louisville's going to defend the taller post players, I realize that not every team has a very talented and skilled 6'7" player manning the middle of the defense and being the focal point on offense. So I thought, all things considered, the Cardinals really put forth a solid performance, and it was led by freshman Tajiana Roberts was fantastic in this game. The 5'10" native of San Diego, California, was 8 of 19 from the field, led the entire game with 21 points, and she made some big-time shots. I thought some shots were ill-advised, but for the most part, she was the scoring spark that the Cardinals needed with Sydney Curry being out of this game. Olivia Cochran had 8 points and 4 rebounds. She ended up fouling out of this game. Nyla Harris wasn't able to get much going. Only 6 points in this one. McKinley Randolph, 1 for 6 from the field. She had 2 points. Jalea Williams, the Miami transfer, had 11. She was the only other double-digit scorer for the Cardinals. But overall, fantastic game for her. Known as a defensive specialist and sort of a secondary scoring option coming to Louisville, 11 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. So she made her presence felt all across not only the box score, but on the court as well. It was a fantastic performance from her. The Cardinals, like last season and like the past couple of seasons, one of the main things is that they're going to have to get more contributions from the bench. You look at the stat line here. Jefferman's was 1 for 7. Istam Bologlu, she was, I think, 1 of 2 from the field, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 1 of 2. Amari Berry was 1 of 7. Arenas was 1 of 6. And Russell was 1 for 4. So, I mean, between 5 players, all of them only made 1 field goal. So there has to be more of a bench presence. So ultimately, it sucks that you lost. But I saw enough that leads me to believe that this is going to be a really good team. It's a young team, but very talented. So when the chemistry builds up, because this is almost a brand new team, when the chemistry builds up, and the cohesion on the court starts to surface, it's going to be a really tough team because defensively, they're going to stay in games with top teams while they figure out their offensive identity because they're really good defensively. This team has a lot of size and length that disrupts the passing lanes, and they've got active hands, and there's just a tenacity that is prevalent in a Jeff Walls squad. So really excited to see what his squad is able to do as we kind of go through the non-conference slate. Louisville will have a couple of games where they should win fairly easily in Southern Indiana and UT Martin, but here in a little under 2 weeks, they'll go to Kentucky for a ranked matchup with the Wildcats. So that is one to focus on. And let's hope that Louisville women's basketball gets back to being title contenders. Speaking of title contenders, again, stop me if you've heard this before, but Danny Busboom Kelly's volleyball squad is a title contender. It seems like that is just a perennial thought that comes true every time. This is a really good veteran-led team. They're top 5 in the country. It's going to be a tough road, but I'll explain why I believe that this team is going to get to the Final Four here in Louisville coming up in December when we come back. Cardinal fans, Zbiotic pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. That's where Zbiotic comes into play. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on fulfilling my tasks the next day without worry. Here's how you use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Zbiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Cardinal fans, I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Once again, the Louisville volleyball team is a national championship contender. The Cardinals currently ranked 4th in the country. They're 19-3. The 3 losses are to the teams ahead of them in the polls. They lost a 5-set heartbreaker to Pittsburgh on the road. They had some tough performances against Nebraska and Penn State. But again, wins over number 6 Stanford, number 7 Wisconsin, number 13 Kentucky, number 10 SMU, number 16 Georgia Tech, going down the line, number 24 Florida State. Looking at the conference slate, they have had a really good conference schedule. I mean, ACC volleyball is extremely tough. They have 1 conference loss. That is to Pittsburgh. They don't have a lot of conference games left. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the regular season, which comes up at the end of this month. I think there are I guess there's technically 8 matches left to go. So that's kind of a little bit deceiving, but they have a huge matchup against Pittsburgh on November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving at the KFC Yum Center. And if both teams handle business like we project them to, that could be the match that ends up deciding 2 things. Number 1, who wins the ACC, because there's not an ACC tournament. It's just whoever wins it outright will win it, or there could be I won't say a tiebreaker. You can have co-ACC champions. And number 2, what we saw last year. It could affect who's on that 1 seed line. Because now I know Pittsburgh's number 1. If they handle business, it might be tough to take them off that line. But if Louisville at number 4 is able to get that win, they could end up leapfrogging Pittsburgh potentially because it's very close in terms of RPI. But nonetheless, the Cardinals are in a really good spot to be able to make some noise. And don't forget, the Final Four is in Louisville this year. It is at the Yum Center. But this is a team that I think does get back to the Final Four. Last year, they got upset in the Elite Eight after having a 2-set lead against Pittsburgh. I think they get back to the Final Four this year because they have the veteran leadership that has played in so many big-time marquee matchups, and it starts with the players from Louisville. Anna DeBeer on the outside will go down as one of the best players in program history. You have Elena Scott, the libero, that is a complete she's a complete game changer in the back half. In the back row, I should say, not the back half, in the back row as a defensive specialist / libero, just absolutely fantastic. And then you've got some players that have just seen a ton of action over the past couple of years. Charity Looper, the one-time UCLA transfer, she has been fantastic for the Cardinals. Second on the team in kills. You have PK Kong in the middle. You have Kara Cressy, 2 middle blockers that have played a ton of sets for the Cardinals. Sofia Maldonado Diaz has over 150 kills, and the list goes on. This is a veteran-led squad that is ready. And then don't forget, there's sophomore Reese Robbins, who also has played a huge role on this team, 6'5" middle blocker. Overall, I just feel like this team has the ingredients to make another Final Four run. You have the experience, you have the talent, and then you've got the coaching. Danny Busboom-Kelly is one of the best head coaches in the country. What also kind of gets lost in the sauce sometimes is the assistant coaches and the coaching staff. Dan Meskey is a really good X's and O's coach that's able to make those in-game adjustments that, if you're able to make those adjustments in the NCAA tournament, that's the difference between going to the Sweet 16 or going to the Final Four in the championship game. This team has been there. They've gotten to the Final Four multiple times since 2019. They're going to get back this season to the home of the Cardinals, KFC Yum Center. But ultimately, I know that there's been people that's wanted me to talk about volleyball on this show, and I do apologize. That's been something that I've wanted to discuss, but with how weird this football season has been and with the basketball talking points, it's been a little challenging. But again, don't let that take away from the significance of what we're seeing, because Louisville having a perennial national championship contender, it's incredible. This is an elite program, and Danny is, put it this way, we're so very lucky to have her and her coaching staff here at Louisville. It's just a matter of time until they get that, that mythical national championship that I believe they're on the collision course to reach. So it would be nice to get that at home. What a storybook ending that would be for the final, the last go-arounds for Anna DeBeer, Elena Scott, Charity Looper, and many other players. But we'll continue to monitor that season. We'll cheer on the Cards, and we'll discuss throughout the remainder of the regular season. But that is going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. When we come back tomorrow, Joe Tipton, On3 analyst for college basketball recruiting, will come onto the show and answer some questions that you all have been asking for the past couple months. So be sure to stay tuned. That's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.